G'day guys, here to have a look at Rosehill on the 8th of January. Bias we'll talk about straight up, so it was a pretty average meeting, but from the shoot, it looked like it was a good advantage to be on speed. You want it to be sort of 4 out or better in the straight, and the other races, all other races, so they're the 11 and 1200 metre races. All the other races, it looked like you even wanted to be wider there, so sort of 6 plus off in the straight certainly looked the best ground, especially in the sort of last 200 metres. So if you got out past sort of 5, 6, 7 out there, it was definitely a better spot to be than in towards the rail. Most horses did get out, but a few did stay in. So it is an interesting day from a bias perspective. But we'll go through it. Some weird slow paces and all sorts of strange stuff went on. Nothing too exciting on the day for mine, but I'll get through it. Race 1 was the get rid of that thing. The highway handicap. Let's get back to it. Rosehill race 8. So it's 1200 metre highway handicap class 3. Zoo Station wins the race. It was a weird race. Just talking about the setup of the race first. It was a weird race with Steph Lee, a really short price favourite. A horse with a bad racing pattern, start to slow out again. And Zoo Station was the other horse that resumed with the stable jockey aboard, had trialled well and looked to have a good chance, but did go really nicely. The horse ran second Golden Point, just really well set up and ran to its best. Unpredicted, sort of did a few things wrong and ran well. I thought it was okay. 2 of the 9s had its chance and maybe just doesn't run the distance. And Steph Lee misses the start, comes wide and doesn't have a lot of luck in running and is a complete forgive, just treated as a barrier trial, I would suggest. So I'll have one look at it. I don't think there's too much to know. So this is Steph Lee. This is his big problem in life, that he just struggles. But he did actually probably jump and muster better than he ever has. So once he gets up in distance, maybe he'll be able to hold a spot sort of midfield. Very strange ride to want to dig the horse after jumping like it did. And I don't know what their goal was, but it certainly sort of went pear-shaped and he just gives up here and sits wide. Wasn't horrendous on the day, but it's just a weird thing to do to a horse first up that's racing probably short of its peak distance, to want to put it out of its comfort zone for the whole race without cover. And anyhow, that horse will improve as he goes up. This is Zoo Station here, who has the cold sit on the fence, which is usually the way to be at Rosehill, then look to get off. Gets held up momentarily here, but gets around the heels of Golden Point, who's had every chance in the run. This is Steph Lee and Zoo Station. So these are probably the 2 horses to really follow from the race. I'll have a look at the other 2. So, and this guy, this was well placed. As he's really hard fit and ready to go. He came up against a field that probably weren't totally suited, and he's run to his best there. But the winner's just a better horse, stronger through the line. Going back and looking at this horse, unpredicted, sat outside the leader on a solidish tempo. They sort of just a pretty even but solid tempo. The race is not too bad, so for it to do this much wrong, sitting outside the leaders ended up running second last. He's done a good job to kick on in the worst part of the track, even though it was the first race of the day, so probably not as chopped up or as a bigger disadvantage going forward. You can see 2 of the 9 sort of travelled, went to push out, and then I thought it was just a little bit plain late. I'd expect it to improve back to 1,000 metres if they choose to go that way. These horses have sort of all had their chance pretty much to do their best and really didn't do a lot. So not much. This horse was in the wrong part of the track at one point. So I think the merit, this horse is going really well, can be competitive this time of year, but does need every chance and doesn't really have a killer blow at this level, and that's the problem. So as soon as any horse has a little bit of class, this guy's probably going to get shown up, but he's going as well as he can. This guy can go on with it, no doubt, and run further. Steph Lee can improve. Sorry, this is Steph Lee. 2 of the 9s can go back in trip, I think, and run better. And this horse, what you've seen here is what this horse has got. So that's going forward. There were a couple of horses first up, like Amicus Cure, who can probably improve, but was a bit plain. There's not too much back here that I could see wanting to find going forward. That's the highway. Race 2. another non-event really. Caesar's Palace rolls to the front, goes out 8 lengths below standard, so really slow, zips home 4 above. There's no pressure at all to the 600, and then has been able to do what it likes, sort of stayed a little bit closer to that inside section there, but it didn't really matter because there was nothing really chasing. There is a weird ride here on Dynamic Impact. Horse doesn't run the distance for mine, but just to be so lax on it early and allow it to sort of detach from the back of the field and then set it this impossible task was strange. Like I just don't get it, why you give up that extra 3 or 4 lengths, especially in a really slow tempo. It's not as if they're going fast here, so you're giving up 4 lengths that horse has to then make up at another time. The horse runs the second fastest, 8 to the 4, 8 to the 2, 6 to the 4, 6 to the 2 of the day. 6 to the 4 of the day. So it makes it a pretty long run from the 800 to the 200, but it's gassed by then. So it's even like it's starting to work now and make up ground that it shouldn't have had to off a slow tempo. And here it goes, and it's out of biscuits by the time it gets to the 200 metre mark. Does make it out to the better part of the track too, which is an issue. But see, like it runs into the race, and it's just gone late. Leader's had a picnic, stays in the worst ground, but had it too easy up front. This horse has had every possible. Trailed the winner and then out to better ground and just had every possible chance to go past it. So I'm a little bit worried about the form because this guy comes out of a pretty weak looking race where it's at outside leader. Don't like to be too nasty on horses that do that work. So forgivable there, and found a nice setup here. So it was findable in this race, but just concerned over the form. This guy's had every chance its last 2 and failed to put him away, so it's a horse I wouldn't be too excited about going forward. Fjordland was just out sprinted. Overlord was really weak late, which is a weird one, and I actually didn't mind the run of this horse through the line. Like, it was the stayer that completely out sprinted, but did pick up this last little bit. Sort of through the line, you can see he's just starting to maintain, and he's a one-paced horse that was completely, like, he was climbing over the back of them, whereas these guys are looking sort of for somewhere to hide. And I think his last 200 was okay. Fall fast of the race, so his last 200 was okay, but in the worst part of the track. So I'm forgiving of that. Kapangi, if I'm forgivable of anything out of the race, I think this horse still needs to come back in distance and was given a pretty average ride. Overlord really weak late, which was weird. Thought it's entitled to at least stick on with these horses, and they're all just battling. So I think all these horses need to be well placed to be winning soon. This horse probably needs to go up in distance. Probably the better run of the race that was a little bit hidden there down on the inside with the pace and the bias against in a weak race. Race 3, this is one of the strangest races you'll see going forward. It's race 3, they've gone out 20 lengths below standard, so 17 lengths below to the 800. Then they've slowed down further to the 600, 20 lengths below, and they've come home 9 above. One of the weirdest races you'll ever seen. Obviously no leader in the race. There was She's All In was the only leader in the race. For whatever reason, slowed it down to crazy levels. As we see, Emery Dance, which is very well backed, pulls its way to the front basically, and then gets away from the field without being extended. Didn't get taken into the race and sort of left in front really early, and then it's just gone at the 200 fitness-wise by the look of it. And these also come past, but the horse did travel really strongly into a stronger race there last start, that sort of Group 1 at in New Zealand, and did something similar. So maybe the horse is a bit of a nightmare. You've got horses running like the fastest last sections of the day here, but they have to, like it's just they've gone out so ridiculously slow. I've never seen them go this slow in a 1500 at Rosehill. Like that last race they walked, and this thing's went out 12 lengths, roughly. It'll be a little bit different, higher class, but then fillies and mares. I don't know the exact sections, but I know that like class-wise they've gone out sort of 2 seconds slower than I would imagine than the race before. And it's really hard to work out what to do with this form. Air to Air stays in the gate, just about misses at about 5, a nightmare, but they do go so slow that it should be able to tack on without doing any work. So that slow start's negated. Like a lot of people go, I missed at 5, got beaten, but really slow through here. So it's basically sort of track gallop speed. It gets caught up without doing any work at all. So I think the slow start's pretty much negated by the slow tempo. So whatever it does, I'd be treating it on face value of what it's done. They go so slow here. This horse doesn't even hardly finish the course. Winner 1-1. Second horse out the back. Third horse out the back. Second horse here. She's all in. Just gets out sprinted completely. Goes way too slow in front. Can't let me bother watching this. Like, you see how strong the horse outside the leader's travelling. It's basically pulling itself into the ground outside the leader. Pulls its way to the front at the 400. All these horses off the bit chasing. This horse is still being held together. When he finally goes for it, you think race over. I certainly did. And then you can see here the horse basically ties up, starts getting its head up and loses its action a bit, and the others are still maintaining that sprint, which you'd expect them to off that sort of tempo. So very jury out on this horse, and we danced. Solid performance, Arctic Thunder, certainly much better than it was last start. But as we should have said, it's very hard to work out the level of this race because they've just gone so slow. They've obviously come home quite well, like fast times, but you'd expect them to maybe even come home a little bit quicker. But the winners come home sort of 10.7, 11 lengths above average for that sort of distance. It's hard to have much of an opinion on the race. All you know is that sort of Arctic Thunder's had every chance in the run, and it's got to the right part of the track. The second horse is set outside leader and pulled a bit, but then kicked clear left in front, weak late compared to the other two. But the jury's out there. It's very hard. Haven't learnt much in that race and be treating it very carefully. Nearly as a fitness run. Race 4, a much more standard race. They do control the tempo. The really good ride here actually on Oakfield Arrow, and gets home quite nicely. The race was still pretty solid. So another one of the Kristen Buchanan runners that are going well, and just a really good ride from Jimmy Innes. He takes control of the race, gets it off the fence in the straight to the right part, and really strong. I had a question actually, Matt sent in, how many times have I watched these races before I do this review, and probably about 10 times each minimum is the answer. I do skip through quite a bit, but I probably watch nearly every horse's run individually, and unless you sort of pick one or two up at a time, sort of like these two horses, you might review them together. But I do go back, especially at the start, probably watch it 10 or 15 times, and then watch each horse's run pretty much. So like a horse like Cool Bro, is it Rebel Bro? I watch this run very closely just because it's a weird ride. Sort of goes back, forward, does a few things, ends up in the right part. So each horse is different, but it's difficult to not sort of watch each horse's run individually. Otherwise, you don't get a good feel for what happened to it right throughout the race. So probably 10 or 15 times I'll watch each race. Slow tempos are even more difficult because you kind of got to go watch the last bit of every horse's race in detail to see which is probably most affected by the slow tempo. If they're sort of building through their gears on the line, they've probably been more affected than a horse that's as slow, that's got a turn of foot and weakening on the line possibly. So it's interesting, the slow tempos, and you have to watch them more and more times. As you can see, sort of Jimmy's got this race parcelled up by the bend. The Metro Legend or whatever it's called, sat outside the leader off the slow tempo. Really good ride, steers it out sort of 6-7 off the inside, which is not easy to do from that leading position. He's just given it the best ride I've seen from Jimmy in a long time. And the horse has done a good job, obviously. Had its chance, even though it was outside leader. This bloke was 1-1 and got going late. He looks like he's ready to do something now. And as I said, it's not a bad race. Catapult's doing what Catapult does, gets back, runs on. It was hard fit. Nick Tock, I don't know why they took a sit with it. It was probably what won the race for the leader, and then went back to the inside. Forgivable. Sapphire Sun was just fair. Cool Bro was a bit of a weird ride, but again, it's finding the line okay. But a bit of a nightmare horse that needs everything to go its way to be in the finish. Holy Rain looks like it just knocked up that last bit. So here it just sort of stops on its run, and that'll help it come towards its peak next start, I would imagine. Hasty Duchess was pretty steady, I thought, and the ones out the back average. So not much to be learnt from here. The winner's gone nicely and can improve off that. I think it was only second up, so I'd expect this horse to do something similar in similar circumstances. And as I said, credit where it's due. Really good ride from. Just checking if that horse had 2 runs. Yeah, it was only second up, and it was going 11 to 1400. So a really good training performance there as well, and has produced well and truly a career best though. So at 1400 again or something similar, you'd expect this horse to be very hard to beat. Placed nicely next start. Race 5, another extraordinarily slowly run race. Gone out sort of 12 below. Again, slow to the 800 and then slowed down to the 600. So just full control of the leaders here. King's Air sits outside leader, controls it, sprints nicely, gets to the middle of the track and never really looks like getting beat. The Waller runners all kind of ran well. Paper Warrior out sprinted, and Wariri Falls was okay in the middle. Lakeen was ridden cold, which I thought was interesting, and got through the line in the wrong part of the track quite well late, but that's what this horse does to you. He's run the fastest 8.64 of the day, second fastest last 200. The only horse that was quicker the last 200 was Yee, and that probably is interesting as Yee was resuming, so that's a good sign for Yee going forward. But these Waller horses, I just can't get a handle on them. They run well, you think they're going to peak, and they drop off the perch, then they come and next start and run really well. So like Starman, really good first up, average second up, goes around $4 or $5 in a very ordinary race at the Gold Coast and goes and runs like Burnborough. Just be very like these first up horses, then second up, but then you've got a horse like So You Win who had a box seat run there the other day, dropped out to then ridden a pair further back on Saturday and hits the line over the same distance. It's just the stable drive you insane. I can't even understand, like, betting is not really the key to them either. Like, they just hard to gauge what they're going to do from run to run. They don't follow patterns like other runners where they're set up well, they do their best. It's not anything to do with it. It's very difficult to follow the stable. Their horses certainly win races and have ability, which is a nightmare because they're very inconsistent. So that's just my rant on the Waller horses. We sort of talked about it a lot in the chat room. So let's have a look at this race. King's Air so controls the race completely from outside the leader. Allows Paper Warrior sort of gets the front. He's happy to sit outside at Tyler Schiller. And these guys just controlled the tempo completely. So they did look the leader, Paper Warrior. Worked out as it seemed. Everyone found their position nice and early. A lot of them had no interest in wanting to push the tempo. So Al Mahaha doesn't want to push the tempo. Wariri Falls first up. Yee first up. Passity first up. Lakeen sort of in a position where it's got nothing to do with the tempo here. And Leb the same. So it's sort of been jagged back from the outside. So they found their positions early. You can see like the leaders basically hacking. They've gone out, 13 lengths below, and then they rip home. The last section, off a faster tempo, they ran a quicker last section sort of here. So I'd say this is a better race than the race earlier where they went really slow and we danced and those sort of horses. This form should hold up better. There's nothing really. They're all sprinting hard here. So you got the Flying V. It's interesting to see how the margins open up and where all these horses end up, because this is where all the positive things in the race are happening. They're all sprinting hard, and then through the line we've got to try and work out who were the most pace affected runners by their strength on the line. So this guy's kind of out sprinted them a touch. He's left them, but not really. He's more left the leader. Then the rest are holding their positions. He was just in a better challenging position. And then through the line, as you can see, Yee's picking up as well as anything. Lakeen is strong in the worst part of the track, so that's a good sign. This guy's probably the one that's paddling a little bit with Paper Warrior. So they're one-paced. These guys are strengthening through the line, so they're more pace affected for mine than this guy or these two. And these guys are just completely out-sprinted. So not a bad run, Dartleb, actually. It went okay. What did it run? 8 to the 6, okay. It's run sort of, like the 4th fastest, last 800, 5th fastest. It ran well, just not its day from a setup perspective for the race and where it ended up in the race. For me, I think Yee was the run of the race. Lakeen was hard fit. Yee's first up. Lakeen's had a prep and extended nicely through the inside of the track, but I think Yee's clearly the run of the race, even though it's in a better part of the track. For its stage in the preparation, this bloke will drive you mad, but obviously going well. No knock at all, and the winner outside the leader controls the speed and puts the race away and holds them easily. So definitely no knock on the leader. And Paper Warrior just needs further. I think Warrior Falls probably needs a bit further too. Passity a little bit disappointing, but was first up. This guy probably just doesn't run the trip and needs a little bit easier, and so does this one. Runs 1400, but just needs a little bit easier. Race 5. That was race 5. Race 6. This horse is just flying. They went a lot slower than I thought they would here, so a really slow tempo, but they come home really well. Sort of 6 above average, go out 3.5 below. So a really solid looking race. A couple above standard. This horse is just going from strength to strength. I certainly thought they would go quicker early here. Once they found their positions really comfortably, this guy came back into the one to beat, no doubt. The betting was probably as expected. It was really soft in the betting as there looked good competition for the front, but a few pulled out, and that made it a sit and sprint, and this guy got to the best part of the track. Joviality was really good, every possible chance sort of in the 1-1 there, and came with the winner, but was first up, whereas the winners had 2 runs back, so really good effort from Joviality. Twilight Affair was raising out a maiden grade up to this sort of grade, obviously 10 kilos, 9.5 kilos difference from the winner on handicaps. So, a bit of fair effort up in grade, and Astero just needed more tempo on, and probably 1200 metres, thought it warmed through the line okay for something similar over an extra 100 metres, maybe, back to Randwick ideally, something like that. But okay, and Never Second was a little bit weak late, had its chance, but back towards the inside. Retrieval wasn't bad late either, but actually this is probably the sneaky horse of the meeting. Miss Baltimore, it's got the earmuffs on. They've dragged it out of the race here. It was only second up, so it went 1200 back to 11, dragged out of the race. This is probably the horse to follow out of the meeting nearly. So let's have a look. So at the start, as I sort of said, I thought there'd be more pressure from maybe Never Second and others to kick up, but they just go bang straight across. I know there was a scratching of Chris Lee's horse, and that just took a bit of the pressure out of the race. I underestimated it personally, and Rule of Law was able to take up that position outside lead. It had sort of lead and control, but the way this track was, outside lead wasn't bad, especially if you're not going too fast here, because you could get to that better part of the track far easier. And that's what he was able to do here. So the 2 horses that got probably the right runs in this race, the way it was run, nice and slow. These guys sort of back towards the softer part of the track, but Jimmy Innes again got his horse out to the middle part, no excuses. This one's probably just still in the slower ground, Never Second. These 2 guys here. Astero gets out to the better part of the track, but completely outsprinted there and gets going late, as does Retrieval. I think Astero's going marginally better than Retrieval, and it's set just through the line there, even though it's in the best part of the track, which is a worry. It's just looking for a little bit further ground, but completely dominant performance from Rule of Law, considering it was outside the leader, and this guy was on its back, Joviality. Oh, man. The horse I wanted to sort of pinpoint, so we'll go back to the start, and then I'll fast forward. So, missed the kick completely, missed Baltimore on base runner, usually, and it was another one that sort of took some pressure out of the race, so allowed to settle back towards the fence and then rides the rail. So again, keen here, it doesn't really want to be here. I think it's a horse racing out of its pattern, and I'd love to see those earmuffs come off, but regardless, goes back hard fence, which was definitely not, it's about 3 off. It's definitely not the right place to be. And just really good to see a horse racing against its pattern and finishing off. So what I like here is that these horses have all had soft runs up on speed, and and Miss Baltimore certainly getting through the line nicely there, and then after the line in the worst part of the track, sort of keep following it. It's up past the leaders here. So I think this horse is not a one pace, but a building momentum sort of horse that is better suited up on speed, and that run there was against its pattern. It's run up the worst part of the track against the tempo, run really well. What the run? So it's run the fastest in the race, 8 to the 6, 8 to the 4, and then it's the second fastest of the race, last 200. So it's maintained a sprint basically from the 8 through the line, which is a good sign. The horse is going well. So no knock on rule of law or joviality wherever they go. And the others have probably got to be a little bit better placed. Asterio needs that extra 100. Never Second might have found its level. Race 7. Probably does find the right part of the track, but one of the more surprising runs of the day. Omuji was well backed, and the winner and the second horse does stay hard fence, but it's a horse that just can't be taken off the fence. It's a bit of a nightmare. Controlled the tempo the way it likes. It likes to race a little bit faster than standard, and sort of break their hearts and try and maintain that to the line, which it's done. So it's gone out 4 lengths above and then held an even tempo to the line. So the winners had to come home sort of 8 lengths above standard the last 800, even though in the better part of the track to win. And the most important part about Omuji is, and rating its performance, is that nothing else really made ground. So it's done something that nothing else has. Strange that it was taken back. I didn't expect it to be last. Thought it had sort of cruised straight across outside leader and control the tempo with the stablemate. Did have to do a bit of work, Canasta, to get to the front. Probably more than expected, even with these horses restraining. But I don't really like that as a sign either. I like fast horses to get on into their positions comfortably, show their speed naturally, which really didn't happen here. But this guy tries his guts out, holds them. The ones on pace he puts away here. Love Planet was probably disappointing. Nitride was disappointing. This horse whacks away and has every possible. The one outside leader was only fair. That was Awesome Lad. Love Planet's there whacking away on the inside. And here's Omuji sailing down the middle. But as I sort of said, these ones out here, they're only average horses, but he's putting 6 and 7 lengths on them, so he's done something. The time's good. Everything's positive about the race. They've run fast. So it's suited and it's in the right part of the track. But as I said, look, it's come from behind all these horses. These guys have worked up on speed. The rest of them have basically had their chance, and he's put 6 and 7 lengths on them. So can't knock the performance. This bloke, obviously the one up on speed, who has done all the work and stayed in the worst part of the track, and he's not really a soft tracker either. Haven't talked about the track, but it was probably a 5.5. 5.5 from around the bends, probably just a little bit quicker from the chute, so probably just a 5.1 is what they've got the rating for. So not a bad effort again from Canasta, but I think that was his race, and his stablemate was just too strong for him. Not in the right part of the track, Love Planet, but very one-paced, above and beyond every possible chance. Spin Bowls every possible, Brown Thomas every possible, Southern Lights every possible, outside of fast tempos. Awesome Lad. So a few excuses, but only fair, and Nitride I think needs shorter and easier. But fastest 8 to the 4 of the day too for Omuji, so it's run a fast section from a long way out and sustained that to the line. Very good performance. Race 8. This is the performance that miffed me of the day. I just don't get it. I want to go back and have a look at it. So the start before, they've gone out 8 lengths below standard and come home 3 lengths above, and this horse, so it had a 15, 16, 2000, so perfectly set up for 2000. Hugh Bowman, soft draw, track conditions very similar, ran with the only difference, and just looking at its performances, like it does race a little bit better at Rosehill, there's no doubt. The horse, it's hasn't seen Randwick too many times, but that's really the only thing you could say. It's had that extra run, but it had won the start before at 2,000 metres, was up in Brisbane, so really well set up to run well again. 22 days, so nothing wrong there. So the only thing, that extra week and back to Rosehill, is probably the only two things you could possibly say that could help this horse improve at all. And I just want to show that the race prior. So in that race, the last 200 metres of that race, it's the 60th best of the day, as opposed to the winner 10, 16 things. And this horse has had a perfect run, 52nd, like last 600, 51st. It's nearly apart from the three that finished back, beaten a long way, and were up on the speed. This bloke's, all tailed out. They had the wind to contend with this day. This bloke didn't. It had cover from it. So here, perfect run, one out, one back. Comes around the leaders, looks to be travelling, gets to the front, and is just overpowered late by so many runners, like Attorney, Creaderis, Parry Sound, what's that bloke's name? Stockman. Even Order again gets past this horse late. You can see, like, across the line, he's had enough. So a horse that's had every possible chance hit the front in a slow tempo and week late. It's just a horse that you find very difficult to want to come into under same circumstances at their following start, especially when you've got horses directly lining up from that race. They go... What was the tempo here? Sorry. They go out very simple, steady. So a couple of weird rides here up front, which we'll talk about. This horse sort of settles a little bit further back, but that doesn't really matter. They're going quicker. The other day they went really slow when it set up on speed, so you can't say that's why it finished off. It can only be Rosehill and this goddamn Waller stable that'll just do my head in. So for me, it was the one horse you couldn't find in the race with any confidence. It does have the right run and follows a stablemate that's susceptible at 2,000, but it's just strange that horses like Order Again, who've had the same run, Attorney, who had a perfect run, couldn't keep up with this horse. Whinge over. They've all had their chance except for the two leaders for whatever reason declared each other on, just brain slides. I don't know what the heck was going on there. Fun Fact actually kicks on really well after attacking for the front for a long way. Attorney just really one paced and quite disappointing, to be honest. Mubaris does have a nice short sprint and was well set up, and this guy just camped on him and beat him. But through the line, Mubaris is probably coming back at him. And he did run into the race there the other day, so maybe it was just an incredibly good ride. And you see, across the line, as soon as he grabs hold, he wants to pull up. But he definitely stronger through the line than he was previously. And that stable just continued to drive me mad. Mustashir was good. Is that what it's called? What's it called? Mustajir was good through the line. Disappointing Order Again. Pecuniary Interest certainly sharply up in grade. Found it a little bit more difficult today. As I said, Fun Fact was set a task and didn't do a bad job, but they didn't go too that crazy fast. It was just a run, and South Pacific wasn't bad running on late there. Here's him out here. He's probably getting closer to being ready to do his best, but didn't learn a lot there. I'd love to see Mubarak come back in distance slightly and be very hard to beat. I think it's the one that's going very well. Race 9, they go out quick here and come home basically even tempo, and the winner comes from last. It runs sort of 8.5 above average coming home. So a similar run to Omaji in what it's done late and that last 800 metres of the race, and a very strong performance and really strong through the line. So it was in the right part of the track, no doubt about that, but this horse is just flying. Certainly I was cautious about it because it was coming out of a race where there were a lot of horses unlucky. It was clearly unlucky. It was going up in grade as far as I was concerned, and Caesar's Palace did come out of that race and win, but again it controlled the tempo, whereas this horse was always going to be in a negative position, but just overcomes that with no problem. I was hoping to see a more positive run from Zagallo It raced against Niffler last start and was very unlucky not to beat it. It puts in a flat run here and just sort of whacks away every possible chance that I could see, especially when the winners come from behind it. They've gone out quick. Nothing Sweet About Me won that race that Casino Lad was very unlucky in. Casino Kid was very unlucky in last time. Both runners get their chance here. This guy's had clearly the hardest run in the race. Diva Bella, not a bad effort. Rousseau goes back to the inside. Flambeur drops out. Niffler gets the perfect run through. This guy just gets outclassed, that's all you could really say. Ataya was weird again, every chance, and went back to the inside, but very average. Said the Zagalo just very flat here. Greek Hero does its thing. Just runs on late, runs okay, and Sacred Command no good. So this bloke momentarily held up, but I love the way it was ridden. Sort of stayed in behind, waited to the straight, tracked up, got out at the right time, and he's done a good job, whether it was act of God or not. Got to the right part of the track, and the race is over in about 100 metres when it gets out. Really strong. Love the way he's lengthening. You can see he's just in really good form, this horse, and really appreciated getting to the outside of horses and being able to let down. Maybe appreciated a bit of the sting out of the track too, but not really a lot of pressure applied to the horse, and it's picked him up and just smashed him. So just a really strong performance, even though it's in the right part of the track. This is a one-paced horse, and I think, as it'll win races, but it's not a horse that's ever going to be too dominant anymore. This guy ran well. I thought David Bella's run was quite good, and Greek Hero did what Greek Hero does. It's just a bit of a suck horse at the moment that doesn't have enough to put a race away, but always running honestly. And two Waller horses that'll drive you mad. Casino Kid, really nice. Lucky Last. True Detectives race, a weird race, slowly run. They come home, or steadily run, but not overly full of quality of the race. Another Waller horse that looks like it dropped off the cliff a bit in Tycoonist, like it didn't go backwards massively, but considering their setups, I thought it should have put the winner away. Was, marginally in the worst part of the track, but True Detective's a horse that, probably is likely to be vulnerable at 1200 first up, which it was. Like, it hasn't done anything too special, and sort of fought on. Bring the Ransom looked like it was going to win the race and just sort of ran out of legs the last bit, beating a length. Rangers ends up chasing the speed instead of leading, which is probably where I expected it to be, and beating a length. So, just honest performance. Garibaldi certainly didn't race to its best, and Iron Power runs into the race really weak late, and Mountain Toe Attack, we never really got into it. So I think it's a pretty average standard race. Tycoonist has proven that he basically is a better horse ridden back, but also needs things to go his way, and he doesn't really have the killer blow to continue through the grades comfortably. He needs things to go his way to win races, or he needs to be well placed. So does a bit of work early, True Detective, but not going super fast here, just sort of even tempo. All these horses find their positions and have every possible chance in the run they can have. Tycoonist is forged back towards the inside section for this part of the run, but you've only got the winners only one further outside him, and he's only on the edge of it too. So okay, this is the hard fit race fit horse that's third up. This guy's first up. This guy's hard fit. This guy's hard fit drops out late. This guy, I think, is probably getting fitter and will peak next start. And this one's come down off a 1400 metre win. 1200 metres, 1012, 1200 metre win in Brisbane. And just thought it was entitled to sort of finish off the race a little bit better, out in the better part of the track. It's not as if they're like getting home hard here. They're only getting home in even time. So it can be forgivable of this one because it was not prepped up to run its best. Smelly this, I think it was only having a barrier trial. Just tells just the way it was ridden and everything, and there's something more in mind for this next start. I would say that's as good as he can go, even though he's outside leader. He's done what he can do. True Detective, no secrets unveiled here. He's a pretty honest horse, but well placed in this grade, and had a nice run and just held on. Tycoonist is racing well, but that's, what you see is what you get there, and, marginally in the worst part of the track. And unlucky to lose the photo, but I just thought it was entitled to put True Detective away considering the preparations they'd had, and just didn't. So, Iron Power, something wrong with this horse. It's just not finishing its races off at all. And Matau Takbi is first up, so treated as a barrier trial. Coming out of that, the winner will run well again next start. So will Tycoonish, you would imagine. Bring the Ransoms ready to peak. Rangers will do the similar thing. Garibaldi's a smelly one. I'd be keeping an eye on it next time around, and Iron Power, the jury's completely out on. Let's look at Rosehill from the 8th, guys. Thanks. Hope there was a few things there of interest, and the horse that's of greater interest for me out of that meeting was the one sort of hidden back on the fence there. Missed Baltimore, a few gear changes and finds the right race. I think it'll be hard to beat.